There are moments in life when you expect conflict, but never in your wildest dreams do you imagine someone will take a bulldozer to your private dock, race years of hard work, and then accuse you of trespassing on your own property. What my neighbor didn't realize was that he had just picked the wrong man to mess with, and his arrogance would soon cost him everything. I've lived by the lake for over 15 years. It's not just a piece of property to me. It's my sanctuary. When I bought the land, I spent months building a private dock with my own hands. I poured money, sweat, and love into it. That dock wasn't just wood and nails, it was where my kids learned to fish, where I watched sunsets with my wife, and where my father spent his final summers before passing away. My neighbor, though, was the complete opposite of everything this place stood for. His name was Craig, and if you could imagine the human embodiment of greed, arrogance, and entitlement, it was him. He bought the land next to mine about 3 years ago, turning what was once quiet, serene lakefront into his personal playground of noise, arguments, and drama. From day one, Craig made it clear he thought he owned everything around him. He complained about my trees blocking his view, demanded that I share my dock because his side of the property was too rocky, and even once threatened to call the HOA over the fact that I had too many guests. For the record, there is no HOA here. He just wanted control. At first, I brushed him off. I've dealt with difficult people before, and I wasn't going to let a hot-headed neighbor ruin my peace. But Craig wasn't the kind of man to give up. Every time he saw my family enjoying the dock, his face would twist like he'd swallowed poison. I think it ate at him inside that someone else had something he couldn't touch. Then, one Saturday morning, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Metal grinding, earth tearing, and wood snapping. I ran outside, and what I saw nearly made me collapse. Craig had rented a bulldozer, and he was flattening my dock. I sprinted down to the shoreline, screaming at him to stop. He smirked at me through the machine's cab window, raised his hand, and waved like it was some sort of joke. By the time I got close enough to make him stop, half of my dock was nothing but splintered wood floating in the water. I was shaking with rage. "Craig, you've lost your damn mind. That's my property," I shouted. He finally turned off the engine and leaned out. "Not anymore. This dock was illegal. You were trespassing on my side of the shoreline. I just did you a favor." Couldn't believe the audacity. My family had owned this land long before Craig came around. I had the deeds, the permits, everything. But Craig, with that smug grin, acted like I was some squatter stealing what was his. "You just destroyed thousands of dollars worth of property." I yelled. "You should thank me," he sneered. "Consider it cleared for everyone's use now. And if you step foot past your little patch of grass again, I'll call the sheriff and have you arrested for trespassing." I rev the bulldozer, engine like a bully showing off a toy, and then drove back to his property, leaving me standing there among the ruins of my dock. I was furious, but I was also patient. Rage makes you sloppy, but planning makes you powerful. First thing Monday, I contacted the sheriff's office and filed a report. Craig laughed when the deputy came knocking, claiming I had built the dock illegally on his side of the property line. He even showed the deputy some fake map he had drawn up, trying to prove his point. Unfortunately for him, I had the real survey documents. My property line was crystal clear, and the dock was entirely within my boundary. The sheriff's deputy filed it as criminal destruction of property and advised me to contact an attorney. Craig wasn't done, though. Oh no, his arrogance didn't stop there. A week later, I received a legal notice. Craig had actually filed a complaint against me in civil court, accusing me of trespassing and demanding I pay him for damages because my dock had lowered his property value. I nearly laughed when I read it. The man destroyed my dock and then had the audacity to sue me. This was no longer just a petty neighbor dispute. This was war. I hired one of the best property attorneys in the state. Her name was Rachel, and she had dealt with people like Craig before. "He's digging his own grave," she told me with a calm smile. "All we need to do is hand him the shovel." We started gathering everything: the original property deed, county permits for the dock, surveyor, reports confirming the boundary lines, photos of the dock before it was destroyed, witness statements from my family, and even some neighbors who saw Craig on the bulldozer by the time we were ready. Craig had no idea the storm that was about to hit him. The day of the hearing, Craig strutted in like he was king of the lake. He had this cheap lawyer who clearly didn't know what he was getting into. Meanwhile, Rachel laid out every piece of evidence with precision. First, she showed the official land survey. The judge leaned over the documents, nodded, and looked at Craig. "Sir, your claim of trespassing is unfounded. The dock was entirely within his property line." Craig's face turned red, but he wasn't done embarrassing himself. He tried to argue that my permits were forged. That's when Rachel pulled out certified copies directly from the county office. Then came the final blow photos and video from another neighbor across the lake who had filmed Craig laughing and driving the bulldozer straight through my dock. The courtroom went silent. Craig's lawyer buried his face in his hands. The judge's gavel came down hard. Case dismissed. Counterclaim accepted. That's right, my attorney had filed a counterclaim for destruction of property, harassment, and emotional distress. The judge not only threw out Craig's nonsense, but ordered him to pay me. Restitution Craig was hit with, full repayment for the docks, destruction court fees and legal costs, additional damages for harassment. But the best part? During the investigation, it turned out Craig had illegally extended part of his driveway onto public land and failed to get the proper permits for a massive garage he had built. Once the county caught wind of it, they fined him heavily and forced him to tear down the structure. His arrogance had blinded him so much. Never realized his own property wasn't clean. Within months, Craig was drowning in debt. His once loud parties disappeared. The fancy boat he used to brag about sold off. The garage bulldozed. The irony wasn't lost on me. And eventually the for sale sign went up in front of his house. When the new neighbors moved in, they were a quiet, respectful couple who even helped me rebuild my dock. And let me tell you, there's nothing sweeter than sitting on that dock, watching the sunset, knowing the man who tried to take it from me lost everything because of his own greed. Looking back, I realized Craig thought he could bully his way into taking what wasn't his. People like that believe rules don't apply to them. But sometimes the system works, and when it does, karma comes crashing down like a bulldozer. He called me a trespasser. He tried to erase years of memories with the swipe of heavy machinery, and in the end, he lost his dock, his house, his money, and his dignity. And me, I gained peace, justice, and the satisfaction of knowing my family's place on the lake is ours forever. This story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.